Hello, everyone. I'm sure you're enjoying the course till now. This particular presentation is what are the conservative options for elderly who are approaching end stage kidney disease. And we will look at certain evidences, some skills required. And I hope you'll get a good overview regarding what can be done if someone does not want dialysis or if someone is not fit for dialysis. These are few of the references you can pause and look at in detail. There are international as well as Indian presentations, some of which have been I've had the opportunity to contribute. So please feel free to pause and look at the detailed uh, references. Mm, this is one particular supplementary of the Indian Journal of Palliative Care, which came out with renal kidney supported care articles. I begin with this uh, remembrance of Mr. Sri Atal Bihari Vajpayee, our beloved Prime Minister, who had multi-morbidities and when he developed end-stage kidney failure, he was dialyzed for 4 months in a stage of advanced dementia. And then when that stopped working, he was put on an ECMO and then he passed away. So let us see if there was any other care option available for Sri Vajpayee through this class. Gone through so many modules and we are sure now that along with disease management, a good dose of supportive care and a very, very ethical approach to symptom control can add a lot of value to the patient care. And this requires competence in detecting what is best for the patient and what may be done with drugs and the recent evidences, a great deal of communication skills, and somehow we need to ensure continuity of care across the different settings that we see the patients in with a lot of compassion. So the same principles of palliative care, when it is applied to those with chronic kidney disease, it's called kidney supportive care. So it can be given while the person is having renal medical care from nephrologist or when they are in the late stages while they are having kidney replacement therapy like dialysis as well as transplant, or if they have chosen not to proceed with dialysis or when they have actually gone ahead and started dialysis but they are sure that they do not want to continue. Okay, so these are the different areas that we do the team. So just to clarify, there are two terms which we need to know: kidney supportive care and conservative kidney management. Kidney supportive care is an approach that improves the quality of life of patients with kidney disease, and this is while they are being treated through the kidney replacement therapy. And all the other principles of palliative care are involved: the whole person care, uh, treating the pain and other symptoms, all the domains, physical, psychosocial, spiritual, all of them are looked into. This is part of the palliative care approach. But the important thing is, patient is also receiving kidney replacement therapy in terms of dialysis and transplant. So conservative kidney management is care of those who are in end stage kidney disease, but they have withheld starting dialysis, or they have started dialysis and they have withdrawn. Okay. So I hope that you're very clear about these two terms which are commonly used in kidneys. So who may need these supportive care? Those who are on kidney replacement therapy, those who have withdrawn from dialysis, or those who have failed transplant, or those who never have reached or started dialysis, either as a medical choice or as a personal choice or because of choice restriction. So let's start with the scenario. This is an elderly patient with a kidney failure who has reached you, and he's a 78-year-old diabetic, hypertensive. There's history of stroke, ischemic heart disease. Patient is ambulatory with a walker, so he's not independent. Frailty score they need to look into, and he's in the stage 5 of kidney disease. This patient, the nephrologist explains that to the patient and family that the status requires consideration of hemodialysis if the symptoms don't resolve. Well, that could be one scenario. Or Mr. Sahadev is already on dialysis since 2 months, but he feels extremely fatigued most of the days, and he has had episodes of fall in BP as he gets connected to the hemodialysis machine. He's unwilling to continue with all these disturbances, and but his wife, married to him since 48 years, wants to continue. So I'm sure that these are common scenarios that you may come across. And so, how can principles of palliative care help with planning this person's care? Well, let us look into certain, in the way we look into will be what the disease based are usually related to the stage of kidney disease, the symptoms, etc., and the treatment response to the nephrologist's management of drugs and diet and the other advices. So that is already, part of your already existing training. We will look at the all the other component also. So once the patient is towards 20 ml of glomerular filtration rate, we start talking about dialysis, and at 15, we say this is end stage kidney disease. So now, what are the other factors? The host-based factors, which are age, nutrition, frailty, comorbidity. Personality related, like what do they value, what are their non-negotiables, and then the context related. This may be related to access and affordability. So in this person, Sahadev, let us eliminate the access and affordability as aspect. Let us assume that he is well insured or he has very well off family which can support him. So we will primarily be focused on the post-based and personality-based questions which can help us plan the care and help them make a good informed shared decision. And so we begin in as in any other prognostication, even in kidney supported care, we begin with a surprise question. So what is the evidence? Surprise question is that nephrologist reflects will I be surprised if Sahadev was to die in the next say 3 months or 6 months, even with or without dialysis? This is mostly an intuitive response of a specialist who has been seeing this patient for a long time, and they see that overall it's a kind of an intuition. And so this is an evidence-based question. This is asked, self-reflective question asked by the nephrologist who has been treating the patient. And they have found that the surprise question associates with mortality in CKD stages 4 and 5, and it has got a moderate to high reliability. So this is an important evidence. It's not just a soft skill. So it can be used in guiding our own thoughts and decisions. Now, besides this, what are the other aspects? So let us look at, especially these are all studies in the elderly. 1 year mortality after dialysis initiation amongst older patients. They have found 4 major, baskets which we need to look into. So as the age goes beyond 75, the patients don't do as well on dialysis. Those with high comorbid scores don't do well. Those who have, started dialysis as an emergency, that means their kidney disease was never detected. It was only detected in the end stage. And then, the pre-morbid functional status. All these, whether the patient was, absolutely independent or they already, functionally dependent. So all these factors have been shown that, when these factors exist, patients don't do well on dialysis. So frailty, geriatric syndromes, all these have been studied, and they have found that 1 year mortality is higher in patients with more than 3 impairment, which is like multimorbidity that they commonly see in geriatrics. And frail patients had a higher risk of with mortality, with or without mortality. Then there is a comorbidity index, and as expected, Charleston comorbidity index of more than 8 is a strong predictor for mortality, even on dialysis. So besides the surprise question and these, host-related factors, there are guidelines which combine some of these factors together. So Renal Physician Association represents the nephrology professionals in the United States. I hope one happens in India too. There is the Indian Society of Nephrology, which is doing quite a bit of work on kidney supportive care now. So this RPA has come out with kind of several shared decision making recommendations. So the recommendation 6 of the RPA, they talk about which type of kidney disease patients may have a particularly poor prognosis with kidney replacement therapy. So if more than two of the following characteristics, that is elderly patient more than 75 years, clinicians respond to the surprise question that no, I will not be surprised when they ask that self-reflective question, then high comorbidity scores, marked functional impairment, severe chronic malnutrition, especially albumin levels of less than 2.5, and those with conditions that may not make dialysis safe, that is advanced dementia who may pick on the lines and pull it out, or they have tendency for recurrent infections, or where there is cardiovascular disease which can cause hypotension on connecting to dialysis. Then those who have a terminal illness, for example, a diagnosis of malignancy, but these are individualized. Just a diagnosis of malignancy because some of them have reasonably good longer life. So if any two of these criteria are met, patients don't do well on kidney supportive care. So the RPA recommends reconsidering that option. So in this scenario, 78-year-old with all those comorbidities, suppose what are the other things? So we have looked at the surprise question and then the general indicators which we talked about, the age, comorbidity, frailty, etc. And also, do they have any specific, related to the actual system? This is the gold standard framework that we are talking about, proactive identification guidance, so that we can talk differently to these patients. So many of them also are similar to what we just discussed, surprise questions, then, unplanned admissions, poor tolerance to dialysis, and patient is choosing at least, like Sahadev is asking us that please let me not start, or, I want to discontinue. Difficult physical, psychological symptoms that have not responded to specific treatments. Like, for example, the fatigue doesn't respond. There is a lot of additional nausea, vomiting, or there are, cramps which are coming up, which are not responding to change in the dialysate concentration, etc. And symptomatic renal patients who have chosen not to dialyze. So these are, in alignment with the RPA guidelines too. And there are other articles which talk about prognostication scores, which have taken, again, multiple comorbidity presence and scoring them, similar kind of parameters. And so if we look at Sahadev and put these criteria, you can see that so many criteria are already met with, more than two are met with. So, and then there are online mortality predictors where patients are on dialysis and you can predict. So if you look at all of these, then our 78-year-old may not do well. So the benefit of starting dialysis cannot be met with. So accordingly, we may have to communicate. Okay. Now, suppose this person was younger. Sahadev was a 65-year-old and had just diabetes and hypertension with a stage 5 kidney disease, and the same scenario, or he is on dialysis, but he has some symptoms only, not like, hypotension on each attachment to dialysis, but he feels fatigue. He's unable to sleep well at night. He feels very restless and he has lost taste. So he is basically burdened by fatigue and other symptoms, and hence he is unwilling to continue. But then if you put him on the same, if you ask the same question, will he thrive on dialysis? You can still apply the same criteria, and we can see that so many criteria are not met with. So he may do well, and our job would be to handle his symptoms because, or his questions on dialysis. He may be refusing because of some memory of a relative, etc. So communication needs to be done. Here, our job would be to guide the 65-year-old Sahadev towards accepting the kidney replacement therapy if the decision is due to misconceptions of, fear of dialysis, etc. We may need to clarify that. But if the patient is not wanting to do dialysis, continue dialysis because of symptoms, our job is to take care of those symptoms and make him comfortable with the kidney replacement therapy. So I hope you understand the difference between a different elderly, a 65 or 68-year-old. I just put a number, who is reasonably, functional and without too much of comorbidity index, and who is otherwise having no frailty, and he's not so advanced in age, etc. Whereas a 78-year-old with frailty, he's requiring a kind of a walker. His performance status is not so great. He has multimorbidity. Then the KRT is not a great option. So I hope you are understanding the difference in prognostication, not based on the CKD stage, but also including the host factors. Okay, so 65-year-old should be guided towards having the KRT, and the 78-year-old may be guided to reconsider or support his decision of not continuing dialysis. So there is a major shift in care tools, and there is still our responsibility to check if there is any misconception, because all these criteria are telling us to reconsider. It doesn't mean that you have to not do dialysis. So we need to still talk to Sahadev and understand. First, we talk to the nephrologist about his biological prospects and how much insight he has, because if we are patients, physicians, and there is a specialist involved, we need to align with whatever they have talked and what they have decided. Okay. So we have to communicate with nephrologists, then you communicate with patient and family. So RPA also talks about the very, very important aspect of shared decision making. Do not, that is recommendation 5, even before the criteria. Do not initiate chronic dialysis in certain set of patients without ensuring a shared decision making process between the patient's family and their physician. So we'll just give a brief example here so that you all have an idea. So, there are certain ways in which we respond when somebody says, I do not want dialysis or I want to withhold. So you might have already learned communication skills, but what would be the best next step in communication with Sahadev? I would have loved to hear from you, but since this is a recorded class, the different options, these are all coming from articles where nephrologists, they tend to explain further. Look, Sahadev, maybe I wasn't clear. Let me explain the complications and distress of not having the dialysis. And so, they're trying to keep them explain better and help them understand. Or these are the statistics of survival with and without, and see how you will benefit with dialysis. So they are expecting the evidence to speak to the patient. Or don't worry, dialysis is going to definitely make you feel better. It's being paternalistic, and eventually we'll go ahead and do the transplant. So here we are being paternalistic. But we suggest the palliative care approach suggests that, understand the patient. Tell me more. So, Mr. Sahadev, could you tell me more about why you do not want the dialysis, hemodialysis? What are your top priorities going forward? So, we are trying to begin using that ask, tell, ask tool, understanding where they come from, and then helping them with the decision making. So, generally, we presume there is a study here which I have quoted here. We nephrologists, providers demonstrated a very limited knowledge of what the patients value from the intervention that we offer. So in this study, they have shown that 49%, that is half the patient population, ranked maintaining independence as their top priority, health outcome priority through an intervention. Here the study is specifically on dialysis. And 50% of the patients ranked staying alive as their third or fourth priority. So we presume that staying alive somehow will always be the top priority because we are disease focused. So these I'm talking about as personality factors. So this is the other section that we talked about. So we need to clarify that. And here Sahadev is clearly saying that, I want to maintain my quality of life and independence. And so let me not waste my time in dialysis. And he's not happy with it. So he may be true, and there is evidence to back it. Then the second thing is the family. The wife and children want him to start dialysis, or they do not want him to withdraw from dialysis. So again, we can give them a lot of gyan and evidence and percentages. But the right way in the palliative care approach would be to explore. Mrs. Sahadev or the children, what do you expect out of having your husband or your father on dialysis? Why do you want him to continue, or why do you want him to start? again, we have to look at their, usually their hopes are to improve survival, improve the quality of life, or to have better symptom control. So, in a 78-year-old, we may have to clarify whether these are realistic goals with dialysis, because first thing we know, overall survival does not, even long-term dialysis is a life-limiting kind of situation. Patients on dialysis die, and 50% of elderly on dialysis die within 6 months of starting dialysis. So we cannot guarantee a long-term survival. And there are many other studies which have shown that those long-term outcomes with patients who are elderly are not as with poor EGFR are not as good as those who are younger. So we cannot guarantee that just by starting dialysis we can have a longer life. And the also the where and how of death they are usually dying. Those elderly who are on dialysis, when they go bad, when they crash, they don't end up having any you know dignified end of life. They usually end up in a ICU and they die there, and a lot of aggressive interventions happened. So we need to think whether very often we may have to take our hats off as a doctor and think from the person's point of view. If it was me, if it was my loved one, what would I value in a 78-year-old? So, and also the option of conservative kidney management is possible. And we need to remember that conservative kidney management does not mean not caring at all. It is actually caring for what the patient values. Okay. Now, the second thing that the family values is quality of life. So here there is a study where they compared maximum conservative management and with dialysis in elderly, and survival, as well as how they spent the extra survival time. You can see that those who did not choose dialysis lived for less than 14 months, and those who chose dialysis lived for close to 38 months. But when you break it up further, 95% of the time that those who did not choose dialysis, those who chose the conservative option, they remained hospital free. So they were free to live their life the way they would have probably liked to. And whereas 50% of the time of those who chose dialysis was spent, in hospital, either for the dialysis 3 times a week or due to complications, etc. And some of the days they were at home, they spent quite sick, fatigued from dialysis. So all that quality of life which we expect from dialysis, we don't get, especially as the age of the patient advances. So if you look at the actual time that they had extra to do what they wanted to do, was not much of a different. You know, you can see that this patient had much more time. Those who chose not to. This is I'm talking about those who are 75 and above with comorbidity. Then will it improve the symptom burden of the patient? That is another thing that the family values. Here, there is these are all coming from the Theanita studies, and you can see some other, references I have given. So many of these symptoms which I have highlighted in yellow are common in the conservative pathway as well as on dialysis. And sometimes when we talk, we may give a wrong impression that hemodialysis, definitely we talk in very clinical terms. Hemodialysis will clear away the water, waste, and toxin overload from the body. And so, that is what dialysis will do. And so we are just talking about that it may be better, but it is never equal to being a normal functioning. You can see the graph here. And what they hear when we talk about clearing waste, water, and toxin, they hear that this person is going to, completely have a normal life with dialysis. So just the previous 3 slides, you can see that overall survival, the symptom burden, as well as the time to actually live the life may not be available. So that has to be clarified. And very often these evidences are not presented in our discussion with kidney disease patients. So when we talk to them, the way we talk and way we explore their expectation and how we actually correlate evidence with that is what really matters, and that empowers the family to make the decisions. So now if Sahadev and family chooses conservative kidney management, it's our responsibility to manage some of his symptoms as much as possible and then answer their questions and then be available right through. Continue to your care and with compassion. So, this is a wonderful paper by Dr. Mark Brown, and he is he was the president of International Society of Nephrologists. He's, practicing nephrology in Sydney, and his paper is based on multiple evidences. I request you to read it. So he talks about how dialysis should not be the default next step, and a balanced considerations regarding prognostic information, etc., should be available to them. In fact, he runs a kidney options clinic where around 20 ml of EGFR, and he explains to them conservative option as one of the options along with the dialysis option. So, and conservative kidney management does not mean not doing anything. So, it requires a multidisciplinary, proactive approach to patients' concerns. So, just to clarify, the one which we are giving now to 78-year-old Sahadev with end-stage kidney disease without dialysis is called conservative kidney management, and what we have given to younger Sahadev continuing on dialysis, but with no, so that is called kidney supported. So, how do we assess the patient? This is a wonderful tool. It is called IPOS Renal Patient Outcome Palliative Care Outcome Scale, and we instead of besides all the other parameters that kidney patients anyway get assessed for, here there is a big list of symptoms which you can read and pause, and you can use it in your assessment in patients with kidney disease, so that we see which are the overwhelming symptoms and can we make it better. Okay, so in a patient with failing kidneys, there is requirement of renal medical care to slow the progress, to monitor, manage the anemia, managing the blood pressure. All those don't stop. The fluid electrolytes, all of them management does not stop. Maintaining the nutrition is an important task too. And if the patient is on KRT, kidney replacement therapy, that is also managed. So these are all the specialities of the nephrologist. Whereas at the same time, the simultaneous care from palliative care would be management of symptoms, the distresses, conversations, clarifying doubts. See, we don't have answers to many of the questions that kidney patients may have, but we will listen and we will get it clarified from the nephrologist and we can respond back. So we can empower them in shared decision making, and we can plan care around what they value, and mainly to improve their quality of life. And we, of course, most of us in palliative care have psychologists, we have social workers, so we need to involve all of that, physiotherapists, and you need to get them into a better functionality, better symptom control, etc. And we continue to care, including end of life as well as bereavement. So both these are the roles of palliative care in elderly patients with kidney disease. The stressful symptom cluster, usually they come in clusters. Fatigue comes because the patient is not sleeping well, and there is physical defunctioning, and because of all this, the patient goes into intrusive thinking and that kind of rumination, and that leads to depression. So look for potential reversible causes when the patient complains of fatigue. As you know, the 78-year-old as well as 65-year-old complained of fatigue, which is very common in kidney disease. So those which can be reversed are kind of, by assessment would be anemia, hyperparathyroidism, uremia if the patient is on dialysis. Otherwise, uremic symptoms need to be managed. Metabolic derangements need to be prevented by right choice of drugs, right choice of, diet advice and the fluid intake, etc. So we need to look into that. And then some of the symptoms like cramps, etc. And, sometimes fatigue is because of electrolyte imbalance, dialysis inadequacy. It could be post-dialysis fatigue. Again, if we communicate with the nephrologist, they may be able to change the dialysate. Then other optimization of other comorbidities will add a lot to the fatigue. And medication, we need to relook and probably change them, opioids, sedatives, etc. So sleep, other non-pharmacological aspects of sleep hygiene, then treating the depression. It could be just simply, if it is adjustment and, kind of ruminative thinking, you may be able to manage with adjustment disorder psychotherapy, or you may have to start medications if it is pathological. And so just to clarify that all these may be done, energy conservation techniques and cognitive behavior. So we talked about all these patients who may need supportive care, those who are on kidney replacement therapy, those who want to withdraw, and those who never started. Okay, so how do we help them? Through knowledge, ethical, evidence-based thinking, and good communication skills. Then we can give them proportionate care, which is the aim for us, isn't it? We always want to give them proportionate care. So update our knowledge in kidney supportive care domain, update our communication skills to elicit their goals, the families and patients' goals and expectations. Because if it is due to a misconception, we need to know that and we need to address that. Then goal-oriented shared decision making, like in Sahadev's case, patient's goal, it should be in alignment with what we eventually recommend. The family's goal, we need to respond to that and clarify what may be realistic and what may not be. And then the care is aligned and then they are with you. Then that leads to ethical and empathetic proportionate care. No prognostication, and we don't know the benefit burden check anything, and then he'll be just going on offering futile interventions without adequate. So coming back to our beloved Prime Minister, he had expressed his wish about life and death through his beautiful poems. So मौत की उम्र क्या है दो पल भी नहीं जिंदगी सिलसिला है आज कल की नहीं मैं जी भर जिया मैं मन से मरूं लौट कर आऊंगा कूच से क्यों डरूं तू दबे पाव चोरी छुपे से ना आ he's talking to death सामने वार कर फिर मुझे आजमा you see the attitude of this person probably would have appreciated kidney supportive care and many other very very famous personalities have very severely distressed and undignified end of life care because this domain is still not appreciated in the larger communities. So they didn't receive proportional care and we can make a difference. In countries where these are very well integrated, advanced living bill is a norm. For example, George Bush didn't have any, lack of access or affordability, but he died at home saying, I love you to his family. And so we are the ones who live and die in the environment we create. So what do we want? When these kind of options happen to us or the family, if we think from that point of view, palliative care, geriatric care, and individual organ supportive care is not just another option; it becomes non-negotiable. Thank you so much. So I hope we are, looking at our patients first as fellow human beings, then as a doctor who can guide. Dossier means guide, and then the specialist who will, know a lot about the organ. So our role is to listen and use our competencies, help the patient and family to make ethical, proportional care decisions. Thank you so much. And I hope you clearly add value through this course in your day-to-day practice. All the best.